Jim. Oh, Jim.
The man I'm going to be presenting to you is a man who is here in Palm Springs to help us in regards to protecting us and serving us. One of the men who basically had needs no introduction. I'm sure you've seen his picture in the newspapers and all. Don Bernett was made Chief of Police just recently, within the last year and a half, I'd say. And he and his lovely wife moved in and are doing a very good job where the old Chief of Police has left off. I give you Chief of Police of Palm Springs, Don Bernett.
Just to give you a little bit of background about me, and then I won't say anything until I'm finished with your questions, and then if I've got something left that I'd like you to know about, I'll continue from there. I've been in policing for 30 years, come this September. I started my career in Garden Grove in 1961. By the way, I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. I was born and raised there, and went to service and got out of the service, and nothing was happening in Detroit, and still nothing is happening in Detroit. So I'm glad I got out in '61. It hasn't got any better. And it came to California because a longtime family friend wrote and said, knowing I was having a hard time after I got out of the service, if you want to come to California and try your luck, come on. And I was on my way and got here on a Friday and had a job the following Monday and worked for about 6 months, off and on, doing a variety of things, getting laid off. Saw an ad in a newspaper for police officers. I was out of the job at the time, responded to the ad and got hired in September '61 about, let's see, that would be about 5, 6 months, 7 months after I got here to California. So I was a police officer in Garden Grove and a motor officer in Garden Grove and detective and sergeant, lieutenant and captain. And then after 20 years there, I decided I wanted to be a chief, and the guy that was the chief was there 10 years after I left, so I'm glad I left to get my first chief's job in Pomona in 1981. So I was police chief there for 5 years. And San Bernardino opened up, and I was convinced by a headhunter that I would be good for that place, and it would be good for me, so I left Pomona with San Bernardino in 1986. 3.5 years later, Palm Springs opened up, and I came here, and this was my last stop. Not only because I got 30 years in the business, but because this place is paradise compared to the places I've been in my police profession, and even in my life. Figuring where my background is from Detroit, this looks great. During my time in policing, when I got into policing out of high school education, and during my time of policing, I got my bachelor's and master's degree and went to the FBI Academy and was involved in a lot of other training and had an excellent career. And I've been involved in many police association groups different here and there. And last year, I finished my reign as the president of the California State Police Chiefs Association. So I've been involved in the profession very actively, and in my community very actively. And of course, I look out for and try to do the best job I can for my people and my organization as well. So with that, I'll shut up, and any questions you have of me, have at it, and when we get through with that, maybe I'll tell you a little bit more about what I've done since I've been here in Palm Springs. So I prefer to see that you get the information you want. Yes?
Chief of Police, in regards to the barricades that we used in the spring break this past year, are there plans to do the same thing for this coming spring break?
Yeah, there's plans to do the same thing with a different kind of barricade. It wasn't very pretty, and the community was kind of offended by the looks of these cement K-rails that we had all the way down Palm Canyon and scattered on Palm Canyon and Indian Canyon. They were very effective for us in several aspects. What we're trying to do is extend the amount of time it takes a car to make the loop. You know, if you're in that line and you're in that loop and you can only go down, which is the prime spot from the park down to Baristo, really, on South Palm Canyon, Stevens Park, and it takes you an hour to get back to there, or an hour and a half to get back to there, we figured, well, maybe the cruiser would get frustrated and park the car and walk, or go back to the hotel, or do something. So that's one of the reasons why we reduced Palm Canyon to 2 lanes and Indian Canyon to 3 lanes. And then from Stevens Park south on both Palm Canyon and Indian. In one lane, we had the K-rails dropped about 3 per block, angled off. Did everybody see them, by the way, how that worked? That was magnificent for us. That did a lot of things for us. The daytime, no problem with parking. People could come in and park and go shopping. The businesses weren't disrupted. In fact, you had an easier time parking because you had a free lane there where those barricades were, where the cars weren't. And then when you came out, you didn't have the threat of an oncoming car. You could wait until it was safe and pull into the traffic lane. What it did for us, especially in the evening, is it kept the pedestrians 1 lane more removed from the vehicles. And that was very important because there's a lot of interaction that occurs between the pedestrians and the vehicles. There's people in the cars calling and yelling and whistling and trying to get eye contact, because the whole name of the game is see and be seen. That's the name of the game. So you're trying to get attention, you know, and you're trying to make contact, meet people, and have a good time. Well, that's okay. We don't mind you having a good time, but it gets out of hand downtown. So we had that extra lane. Squirt guns weren't effective because they had that extra distance. We had very little balloon activity, very little water activity. They couldn't communicate verbally because of the sounds of the motorcycles going through. You couldn't hear each other talk in that regard. And it provided a safety margin for us, because now when we saw these vehicles coming down who had a violation, a vehicle code violation, whether it was unlawful riding, whether it was noise, whether it was the boom box, whatever the case may be, we could pull that car over into that lane that we had these barricades in, talk to the people and all this other stuff, and not worry about our backside of traffic coming up behind us. And we had that margin of safety, which was really great. And we had no problem in keeping the pedestrians on the sidewalk, on the curb, because they had 2 lanes to try to get across, and they felt they're liable to get caught before they got back across 2 lanes. So they stayed on their side. They stayed on the sidewalk. Cars moved. In fact, the officers told me if you stand in one point and watch the cars go by, they were going by faster this year than they were last year with all 3 lanes open, because the cars weren't stopping and talking to the pedestrians and having that kind of interaction. So what we would like to do next year is set up the barricades in a very similar fashion. Deal with 1 or 2 of the problems that we had associated with the barricades and how they were dropped, especially around Stevens Park. But use something that's more pleasant to the eye. But what we have to do, of course, is make sure it's not movable. The barricades that we use, the K-rails, are definitely not movable. We have to use forklifts to get them things up and down. It costs us a lot of money, $17,000. We own the K-rails. Just for the labor and the equipment alone, it costs us 17 grand to move those things in, drop them, and then pick them up 10 days later. So that's too expensive, and they're not pretty. We're doing research now through all out the nation, really, as to what is on the market today that would suit our needs related to the immobility of the item, and still be decent looking. So that's where we're at, and we're still working on that, and we'll see what we come up with.
Okay, thank you.
Chief Bernett, I was wondering how the situation in LA is affecting the Palm Springs Police Department.
The situation in LA has affected policing throughout the nation, and specifically in California negatively. You know, people have their suspicions about police. A lot of people favor police, support police, where they don't support other facets of government. You know, they have a distrust. Most people have a distrust of government, I found in my life, and fewer people have a distrust of police. But there's a lot of people who have a distrust of police. Some minorities especially have a distrust of police. And some of the distrust of police is not based on any contact. It's based on table talk at home. It's based on conversation and hearsay, but no contact necessary. But the perception is that distrust, and that's reality when you have the perception. We work in California to develop the best possible relationship with the community, and we're recognized throughout the nation as the best trained, most professional police agencies throughout California and any other state in the nation. And the police people will tell you that in other states. And when I was back in the FBI Academy in 1974, we got razzed and, you know, had a lot of flack from these other states who had police officers there talking about how good we think we are, and they're always hearing about how great we are and these kinds of things. Nevertheless, we're not as good today as we were before March, in everybody's mind. in everybody's mind. We have stepped at least a step lower, and maybe lower, because all of those suspicions and that hearsay, although I never had contact, I've heard police are brutal. Now I've seen it with my own eye on television, and now it's deeper set, and it's going to be more difficult for us to overcome. So it has impacted law enforcement throughout Palm Springs Police Department, no less than any place else. And we're very ashamed of the incident, and we have to recover from that. And hopefully time will pass and heal the wound, and we get on about our business, and we don't have another reoccurrence like we had in Atlanta. No, Texas. Have you seen that gross situation where they had the passenger half out of the car and they were beaten on? But the curious thing about that is during Easter week, there were video cameras all over the place. All over the place. They were watching. Every time we'd make a stop, there was someone there with a video camera watching us. Well, what happened with it is we got 2 crimes in progress. We had a stabbing of a local football player by a gangbanger in the leg, and people had it on video. And also, we had that crime. We had another crime in progress in our nudity ordinance. We had a lady that was doing a dance, and she had her buttocks bared at Talkwitz in Palm Canyon, and that was on video. So we had these 2 crimes that we had on videotape, but we perform well. And I don't mind video cameras anytime, anywhere, as far as my officers are concerned in any city. Come on. If they're doing wrong, I want to know about it. And if you're out there, you might be able to assist us. In fact, I'm making the briefings, and I've got to make one tonight at 9 o'clock. With my officers, and I go down and visit and see what's going on and see what the issues are and things of this nature. One of the officers suggested that we install video cameras in the cars, and so that when an officer gets out on a car stop, the camera can be turned on and see what the activity is, and someone beeps us or something of this nature, or we want to see the tape, we can look at it to see what's going on. So the Rodney King thing was extremely damaging to all of law enforcement, and it's something that we're just going to have to get by through our performance.
Some good.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. In face to recent drive-by shootings in Cooper City and gang banging, like you mentioned, what is the police doing about that?
We are involved in a variety of groups who are talking at this point in time. Talking to identify what it is that can be done and should be done to deal with the developing gang problem. We have a developing gang problem. I've been asked before, do we have a gang problem? And when the news asks you, and again, some of you are quite familiar with the press, when the news asks you something, if you give them an explanation, that explanation seldom appears with the bottom line, with the statement that you're going to give. So frequently I may say, well, we don't have a gang problem. But we do have a developing gang problem. When you talk about numbers and you talk about relative to what do we have a gang problem? Relative to LA, we don't have a gang problem. Relative to where I just told you I came from, Pomona and San Bernardino, we don't have a gang problem. But we are developing a gang problem. My interest is, in law enforcement, to encourage prevention, not only in the gangs, but in crime and everything else. Why should you become a victim and then call the police and we go out and arrest the person? You'll never recover from being a victim, whether it's a property loss, whether it's an emotional trauma, whether it's a physical trauma, you're still not going to recover. I don't care if you have insurance, you're not going to recover. So it's my intent and my focus to focus on prevention wherever I can and where my resources will allow. And in a gang problem, that is the only salvation, in my opinion, to mitigate the gang problem and not allow it to become entrenched in the valley. And in Pomona, I had a 12th Street Hispanic gang, 50 years. Their grandfathers were gang members, their fathers are gang members, they're gang members, their younger brothers would be gang members. You had no desire at all in that neighborhood to deal with the gang problem. That's the way of life. That's, you puff up your chest when your son becomes a gang member. You don't be ashamed of it, and you don't try to correct it. We don't want that to happen here. And so if you don't want that to happen here, then you've got to deal with the youth. You've got to deal right at as youngest as you can get it. And the captain in the police department, Bill Balkenberg, if you know him, just attended a 2.5-day session here at the Marquee that had people from disciplines, all kinds of disciplines associated with youth, especially school districts. And it was a program that he was quite impressed with that starts in the 2nd grade. You have information given to 2nd graders associated with gangs. 4th grade, you have another slot of time that you deal with these 4th graders associated with gangs. In the 6th grade, you would give them the whole full-blown, intense program associated with gangs. In the city of Paramount, about 1979, 80, they implemented an Alternatives to Gang Membership program, and they do it in the 5th grade. They, through their research, found that if a child is thinking about gang membership, the child makes the decision at 10, in the 5th grade. And they did a pre-test and a post-test associated with their program. And when they went into the 5th grade, they did their pre-test, they found that 50% of those in the 5th grade either thought gang membership was okay or they were undecided. The other 50% said they didn't want to deal with gangs at all. When they finished their program, which is a 15-week program similar to DARE, I don't know how much exposure you've had on the Drug Abuse Resistance Education Program, but it's similar to that as far as 1 hour a week for 15 weeks or 16 weeks, and there's different segments. When they finished their Alternatives to Gang Membership program, that 50% who thought gang membership was okay or didn't know whether or not they wanted to join a gang, 90% of them said they wouldn't join a gang. That's where you've got to be. You've got to, just like you do in DARE, you've got to provide the youth some knowledge, the consequences of gang membership before they find out too late, how they can avoid gang membership, what the alternatives to gang membership are, how they can go to the Boys and Girls Club, how they can go to YMCA, how they can give out in structured sports, how they can do a variety of things, get a job even, you know, cut lawns or whatever the case may be, to make money and have fun. So you got to give them all of this information and these alternatives so that when they're approached, they can walk away from it. And in some of these cases, it's extremely difficult because they live right smack dab in the center of a gang neighborhood. But they can do it. They can do it. A magnificent program that took place when the Watts riots broke out in '65. There was a significant migration of blacks eastward in LA County. And they got all the way up to the LA-San Bernardino line and stopped, and that's Pomona. And between 65 and 75, there was a white flight out of Pomona. 500 homes left, just left, people left. Blacks came in, and there was a major problem in the schools. There was fights, you know, racial fights, not gang fights, but racial fights, and all of this turmoil because of this stark change that appeared overnight. And law enforcement wasn't winning out as far as its reputation related to the minorities who had come into the community. So this one gentleman by the name of Willie White, who is now a councilman in Pomona, saw this problem between police and the black community, especially the youth, and he started a program that he called the Junior Police Program. And he got these youth from the disadvantaged areas and the minority areas, and he had them come to what he has as this Junior Police Program. He has an academy all summer. He has them drilling. He has them doing push-ups. You think they were in Marine boot camp, and they love it, every minute of it. And they wear a uniform, a tan uniform, and the first couple times they go back into their neighborhood with this tan uniform on, they really get some hassle, really get some hassle. And then it's kind of accepted. And this is kids, by the way, from the 1st grade through the 9th grade. And after the 9th grade, those who have gone through it become peer instructors, student instructors, and things of this nature. But those kids go in there and they get self-discipline, self-respect. They find that they can achieve. They're also given, by the way, 3 R's throughout the summer in classroom activities so that they can get remedial help there and continue their education in that regard. But they don't get in your face after that program because they develop some self-esteem and some confidence in themselves. They know they don't have to join a gang to get what they want to get. They can do it on their own. Those kinds of programs, a focus on youth, is where we're going to deal with the gang problem. We're going to deal with it. In my opinion, society has abandoned the youth. And we have to recognize that, and we're going to have to pay the price for that. We're going to have to really get behind the youth to provide the alternatives to gang membership. And get the parents involved. You know, parents today are too busy. They're both working. Got to make a living. Got to pay the rent. Or if there's one person, that person definitely is working to pay it. The kid's there. The kid gets out of school. You have the latchkey problem until the parent gets home. That's a trouble spot. Parent gets home, also has household chores, has bills to pay, has shopping to do, has clothes to wash, puts the kid some type of dinner in front of the kid. If the kid's lucky, sets the kid in front of the TV. When the bell rings, it's time for the kid to go to bed. No communication, no values, no character building, no instruction in this case. This is not all homes, of course, but these are the kinds of homes from where the youth at risk develop, and those are the kinds of kids that join the gangs. So you got to get the parents involved. We have to pull them off the couch. We have to get them into the schools. We having problems in the schools, get the parents in the schools. The kids being truant, get the parents involved. We have to get the parents involved. If you get the parents involved, then you can deal with the gang problem. But all of that, and there's no easy answer. It's a comprehensive answer, but no solution. It's just to get the parents up, deal with the kids, and you can deal with the gang problem. But, and a closing statement on that. Could I have a glass of water? Is there a glass of water or something? A closing statement on that. LAPD throws blue at the gang problem. They throw millions of dollars at the gang problem. The gang problem continues to grow. Police can't do it, but it is not something police can deal with. It has to come from the community and the neighborhoods. All we do is pick this one out, pick this one out, this one down here. So much for that.
Do you have, two questions. Do you have identified gay and lesbian officers on your force? And do you actively recruit from the gay and lesbian community here in the desert?
No, I don't have any identified gay and lesbian officers. We don't ask, and no one has told us. Again, I've been here since October of '89, so I have not been aware of any gay and lesbian officers. Palm Springs is a very unique police department in many regards, but in one specific regard, in policing throughout the state. Until I got here in October of '89, 5 years prior to that, they never hired a person off the street. They never hired someone from the community to start in the law enforcement. Never had to. We've got a line at our door, figuratively speaking, of people who are in the business, who are law enforcement officers, who have already qualified through the process, have gone through the academy, have got a couple of years' experience under their belt, and they want to come to Palm Springs. They've heard about Palm Springs. Everybody's heard about Palm Springs. But they've heard about Palm Springs PD and the reputation that we have in the system, the criminal justice process, in the community, and they want to come here. So we have no problem filling the bills. We're fully staffed. There are probably 50,000 police officers in the state, about 55,000 police officers in the state, and so there's about 10%, about 5,500 officer positions throughout the state that are going begging. One of our problems in law enforcement is recruitment. We're not too attractive, and after the Rodney King thing, we're less attractive. But here, we have no problem. So I opened up the exam process for people who want to get in the business in 1990 to get some minorities, because minority population in policing overall is low. It's not, they're building, it's developing, but it's still low. Minority officers don't lateral that much. There aren't that many to lateral, and those that are there like it where they are, or the organization they're in grabs them and won't let them go because they want to keep them. So we don't get minorities. So I opened it up, and we were successful getting a few more minorities on board. But we don't ask sexual preference, so we don't know what we have.
I just wanted to know what the police plan to do with the snowbirds' poor driving habits this upcoming year. The roads are becoming very dangerous.
I agree.
On there.
I agree. We're gonna do what you do. Get out of the way. Right. We have traffic officers. We have 3 motor officers on the department. We have 2 cars that work accidents, work drunk drivers, and write citations as well. All officers in uniform write citations, but these are dedicated to traffic. And if they make unsafe lane changes or don't, or create an accident behind them when they make a quick turn unannounced, drive too slowly and create an accident, well, we write those citations even when there's not an accident. If it's a violation of law, we write it. But that's about it. In California as well, if an officer comes upon a person who the officer believes is incompetent behind the wheel, we can write a letter to DMV and they'll have them re-examined. So we do that as well. When we find the driving and then we go out and talk to the individual and we find that this person should not be driving the vehicle. This is not just elderly, it could be for any reason. So we would ask for the person to be re-examined and go.
My biggest complaint with the Canadians driving is they drive slow. We don't have too many signs along 111 that say people should get to the right. Is there any plans in the future for doing something like that?
There is no reason to get to the right on surface streets. You can be cited for traveling too slow. If you're impeding traffic by your slow speed, you can be cited for that. But there's no requirement for you to be in the outside lane or the right lane if you're traveling slow.
Right. No, I'm just requesting like signs. Maybe they can read them and.
Oh, you mean? Well, we can't cause a person to go to the right if there's no law compelling it. You know, we can't just put up a sign, slow moving vehicle, stay to the right, unless there's some law compelling it, and there isn't any.
I was thinking, you know, last winter, because I saw a lot of Canadians still have their kilometers set up on their vehicles. Can we put under our miles per hour signs kilometers per hour too, so then they can go the same speed limit as us? It's logical.
Yeah, it may be, because we get a lot of people from Europe in town too.
Because when they do 25, when they see a speed limit set for 25 miles per hour, they're going to do 15 miles per hour to us. They're thinking they're doing 25 kilometers.
I'll mention that to traffic engineering. The only situation with that right offhand is the cost of it, but I'll mention the traffic engineering. And there also could be some vehicle code, traffic engineering law that prohibits that. I don't know, but I can ask them. Yeah, sounds reasonable to me. Yes.
In regards to Alta's question, I don't know if you really touched on that. If you found that there was an officer that was gay or lesbian, I'm not sure if you answered that, what would be the attitude of the department?
The person performs on the job. No problem. So, get on it.
Speaking for yourself, I'm just wondering if you
For the organization.
if you have a feel for.
No, I haven't experienced it here, but if I found any deviation from that, then I would deal with it directly. You know, if there was any deviation, if I heard about any problem this individual was having, either from the individual or from others, or I witnessed something, or I heard something going on, we deal with it directly.
So you're saying it would be safe
Oh, yeah.
for an officer
Yes.
to say that they were gay or lesbian?
Absolutely. With the risk of taking some flack initially, you know, when first discovered, and allowing the organization to assimilate that, to accommodate that, to deal with the hardcore individuals who have a major problem with that. You know, it takes a period of time to deal with that, to see what the response is going to be. The organization is not going to have a problem with it. Some people are going to have a problem with it. And deal with those problems as they develop and as they are exhibited in a very direct and firm fashion.
Those individuals, the hardcore ones, then when I might be concerned with then that hardcore individual who might stop me some night if I'm with my girlfriend.
Well, then if that person reveals his or her prejudice, then you should report it. If they act in any fashion that you perceive it to be because of who you are or what you are, you should report it. Oh, definitely.
So, I don't mean to monopolize this, but is there been a plan to do sensitivity training in the Palm Springs department?
If you're talking, I know what you mean. We don't want to call it sensitivity training in police departments. That's, but I have no problem with that kind of awareness program. I have no problem with that. And we have training constantly, and if we wanted to work out something with this organization and the police department to have a couple hours of training and a block of time that we have training, you know, on different issues, and put a 1 or 2 hours into that, I have no problem with that at all. Not at all. Yes.
Chief, you've obviously done a lot of training, have been trained a lot, and you're talking about the image, the distressed image that police officers are under right now. In a sense, you're a minority too, and you live with it every day. Minority to a lot of people. If you were in our minority instead of your minority, and you wanted to set out a program and say, okay, we want to better our image, we want to deal with the people that don't really know us, we want them to know. What kind of things would you do? You have to do this for your department. What would you do if you were sitting over here?
I don't know. I would guess that you would try to take the opportunity to speak as to what you have in common with the heterosexual, it would seem to me. I think, you know, the more common factors you can show in that regard, I think, would diminish the difference that some people may perceive. It would seem to me. That's one way of addressing it, for sure. And doing as you suggest, taking the opportunity when it presents itself, but not waiting for that, to force the opportunity for these awareness programs so that people better understand the whole situation. And this is best as I can think of that you could do, and hope to gain some headway in that regard.
In that respect, would you say that this past Pride event, because it was public, was that a better approach, do you think, than having it off somewhere?
It can be. It can be public. Frankly, I think the conduct of the activity is important. I'll call your attention to the San Francisco parade, what aired on television. You know, it gets a little bit difficult for a lot of people to accommodate some of the conduct and dress. So you might end up a loser in what you're trying to accomplish, depending on the conduct at the event. Whether or not it may be right, and whether or not there's no wrong, there's a lot of things I think are right and I see no wrong in that I don't try because I know others do. So that would mean a lot as to the event and how it's conducted and how the people conduct themselves.
So it's on the festival. In LA and in San Francisco both, they do have parades, and we're seeing our festival getting larger. Do you think that in the near future, if there would be a parade, there would be a problem with the community and the police allowing this for?
I don't know if there'd be a problem with the community. We would have very little say whether or not you have it or not. You know, I can't speak for the community, but we would have very little say in whether or not you have it. After we talked to you and we had an understanding of what the parade was going to look like, what you anticipated as far as entries, what are you going to have? We don't want anything that's going to create something. Just because of who you are and you're going to have a parade, that's not material. It's what is it going to occur in a parade, and is there going to be some provocation due to the entries and the way people conduct themselves of the spectators? And that's what we would be looking at. Just like concerts, we take a look at concerts. In some concerts we go do it. Other concerts you say, no way, no way, that's going to be a major problem. So the same with parades and everything. What is going to occur in a parade, and what are your events going to be, entries and things of this nature?
Where would you draw the line on those entries? Would it be, you know, nudity sort of things, or which?
Absolutely. No violation of law.
Right,
No
but I
violation.
mean, basically cross-dressing, people cross-dressing, walking the parades, in
Wow.
their dressed up.
I'd like to say good
attire.
taste, but everybody has a different version of what good taste is.
Well, there's a lot of
Good taste.
cross-dressers that have very good taste.
Well, you know, if you're cross-dressing, that's not a big thing. It's a matter of what you wear. I saw a male subject in I think it was the San Francisco parade, who was parading in something that was even skimpier than the thong bikinis the ladies were wearing.
So we're talking
People
again
don't
about
see
nudity.
that.
Nudity would be one major place.
And yeah, conduct again, as to what happens on the street. Yes.
Chief Johnson in Cathedral City had mentioned that there seemed to be an increase in domestic violence in that community, in the gay household. Are you seeing that at all in Palm Springs?
I haven't had it reported to me from the gay household. There is a significant amount of domestic violence, spousal abuse that occurs in any community, and it occurs in Palm Springs as well. Whether it's gay related, homosexual related, I don't know. I've never had it reported to me that way, and I've never seen a report that made that distinction. So, since I've been there. And I don't read all the reports. I look at the log, and they're very brief, and unless there's something that really catches my eye, even then I don't pay much attention to it. But I've been here 19, 20 months, whatever it is, and haven't had any indication of any problem in that regard from the people that work those things and respond to them.
And since you mentioned reports, does the Palm Springs Police take compile records on hate crime statistics?
Yes, we used to be required to do that, but we're no longer do that. The federal government wanted us to do it for 1 year, I think it was, or 2 years, and then we did that. So we don't report the statistics, but we do take the reports. If there's a crime, we take it. We report it. If there's sufficient evidence for the DA to look at it, we send it to the DA. If we know who the suspect is, and normally you do in these kinds of circumstances, we send it to the DA and let the DA make a decision on whether or not to follow. Yeah, but we don't just wave them off because of who's involved. If it's crime, it's crime. It gets reported and goes. Yes.
You're planning on getting the mobile radar units?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think that's going to cause any not problems, but less business for some of the Palm Springs business owners because they may not want to even go into a speed trap area?
We have radar now. We have radar on our motorcycles, and we have radar in our 2 traffic cars. And what this program is that I've introduced, and the council has agreed to allow me to put on the street if I like it, and I'm still doing the research on it. It's a vehicle like a Scout truck that's equipped with radar, cameras, and a digital display for speed that comes out the side of the car on the traffic side. We park it on a roadway. We set the radar for the speed we want to enforce. For instance, if it's a 40-mile-an-hour speed zone, we may set the speed for 50, and anything over 50 we would cite. Okay? So we'd set the truck up, set up the radar, put the digital display sign out that shows your speed when you're coming. Have camera sets up facing the oncoming traffic. About 100, 150 feet down the road, we set up another camera that faces the same way the traffic's going. So if you're coming down the road at 65 miles an hour, it'll catch you on the radar, it records your speed, it takes your picture of your front license plate, and it takes your picture as a driver of the vehicle, and when you pass the back camera, it takes a picture of the back of the truck in case you don't have a front license plate, so we can find out who you are. The people who provide us this equipment take the equipment, take the material after these speed violations are recorded. They determine who the registered owner is, and the registered owner gets in the mail a traffic citation for speeding, indicating the date and time and the speed, and the picture of the individual in the truck. And hopefully you're with someone, if you have someone else at home, you see, and there was someone in the truck with you that you didn't want that someone else at home to be, to know about, you may be in a little bit of trouble. So you get this letter, and you get your picture, and you get the citation, and it tells you to appear in court in this time, this date. And it also says on the letter, that's not you, call this number. Or if you know who it is, and then when you call, if you know who it is, tell us. If you don't own the vehicle anymore, do this. So there's a variety of instructions taking care of a few options on this thing. Okay, and then this outfit that supplies us this equipment will, if you don't respond after all that, they'll come looking for you and see if they can find the person in the picture at the address of the house. Then you go to court and you deal with the citation at the court. The vendor gets a flat rate from the fines when a person appears in court and is found guilty or pleads guilty. And that's how they pay for all the equipment they give us. Now, the intent of the program is to reduce injury and fatal accidents attributed to speed. 20% of the accidents in Palm Springs that result in injuries and fatals are due to speed. So if we can deal with that 20% with this piece of equipment, we're way ahead of the game as far as saving injury and saving lives. We don't expect to have it on the road 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. We hope that we can share the program with Cathedral City, and we're still doing our research, and once we decide if we want it, and we'll talk to them and say, would you like to have this for 20 or 25 hours a week? We'll use it for 20 or 25 hours a week, because we don't want to oversaturate any community with speed enforcement. Another thing we're going to do is when we're going to employ the program, we'll have a media blitz. When we employ the program, the first 2 weeks we issue courtesy citations. And then when we're going to set up, what we're going to hope to do, if we can get the press to cooperate on this, is to put in the newspaper, the photo radar program is going to be set up on one of these 4 streets tomorrow, between this time and this time. that hopefully will have two things. One, we're telling the community we're going to have the photo radar set up, but you don't know which one of the four. So hopefully you do the speed limit on all four if you're going to travel any of them, and we'll slow the speed down even when we're not, hopefully. So that's how we plan to operate it. We don't want to frighten the tourist away, but tourist or resident, we don't think that they should be able to jeopardize your safety on the roadway. That's why we're going to pursue it again.
How accurate is that when you have two cars going side by side?
Very accurate. They can discern each car
Well,
and take each car separately.
what if they're Canadian or something and they're not registered in the state?
Some will fall through the cracks. If it's a rental car, they don't even try to find out who they're driving. And there's a couple other instances where they fall through the crack, but it's about 1% that we don't follow up on. And so we feel that's fine.
So if we put an Alamo bumper sticker on our car, we can either
It comes back as to who the car's registered to. That makes the difference. Yes.
Why would you not follow it up? I mean, because the car that's rented would be registered to that person. Maybe you would.
It wouldn't be registered to the person, but they would have the paperwork at the rental
It would say-
office about the individual. But you're chasing people out of state and all this other stuff, and you know, if they don't want to pay, they don't want to pay. If you get a ticket in Arizona, well, not Arizona, we have a reciprocal arrangement there. But if you get a ticket, let's say in Kansas, traffic ticket, because you went to Washington, D.C. for a visit on the way through, you got a traffic ticket, and you come home. If you don't pay the ticket, you don't pay the ticket. They're not going to get a warrant for you, they're not going to come out and get you. Nothing's going to happen like that. So those people who were visiting were probably not paying anyhow. So they have found, the vendor has found that it's not worth the effort to pursue certain claims.
So probably, in other words, people with out-of-state license plates you wouldn't follow up on either.
I can't say for sure on that.
I
They're still doing
I
it.
can say,
Oh.
from personal experience, they followed me all the way from Switzerland to give me one of those tickets. So I know it works.
You get your picture with you?
They didn't send me the picture. I haven't paid for it, hoping to get it, but they followed me all the way. Yeah.
But there would be no outstanding warrants then if someone left the state and came back. If it was, say, a speeding ticket, there wouldn't be, you know, because there are warrants sometimes
Yeah.
when you come back into a state.
But yeah, there may be a warrant
So like
for you
somebody
in
want
that
to come back
state.
into that state, they could be caught
If you
driving
got
the same
stopped again,
vehicle.
right, there may be a
So
warrant.
there's-
But you take that chance. Meanwhile, you don't pay whatever the fine is. Yes?
What problems do you see, if any, with the gay community here in Palm Springs? What things would you share with us that
Ruth
might
Hardy
be
Park.
problematic?
Ruth Hardy Park. Major problem. We have a major problem in the head on restrooms in Ruth Hardy Park. Male activity, homosexual activity. And I'll tell you how we approach that. Law enforcement agencies are quick to set in decoys, set on cameras, or do whatever to catch people in the act. What I instructed my people to do, and they have done, is they contacted the Desert Age Project, and they contacted the Bottom Line. So we need help. We want this problem resolved. Help us resolve this problem. We don't want that kind of conduct in our parks. I mean, the people are infuriated. I mean, there's kids playing there, you know, the people in the neighborhood, and all this other stuff. And they were very responsive and very cooperative, and have worked with us in providing information and being up there and things of this nature. We still have a problem, and this has only been going on for about 4 months, 3 months, something like this, that we made this contact as far as involving the Bottom Line and the Desert Ace Project. The problem has been for a while. And that's our main problem. If we can deal with that, we'll be, very, very happy.
I might just make a suggestion that Laguna Beach, well, they have a gay mayor, Robert Gentry, and I heard just the tail end of him speaking on the radio the other night. And they are working there to do something that hasn't really been done before, but that's a problem they have, and they've been making some headway on that. And I'm fortunate, I'm not able to share with you what they've been doing.
We need your help in that
They
regard.
don't go into the restrooms anymore. They're letting the gay community police their own in some way, and I'm not
We
sure how
can,
they're doing it.
if we can be assured that the policing is prohibiting the activity, fine,
Yeah.
fine. We want the problem resolved, we want the community to feel safe, and we don't want them to fear the parks and not take their children. So we need your help in that regard even further than what we've gone. So if you would even make that a project or discuss that in one of your meetings, I'd appreciate it, and I'm willing to work with you on anything you can come up with to address that kind of problem. Okay.
Does your department employ decoys in that situation?
We can. I don't think we have since I've been here, but we can. And that's where we come to, you see. If these kinds of cooperative approaches don't work and we still have the problem, then you got to bear down a little bit more. And decoys comes near to the end when you're really going to get enforcement. You got to start making arrests. That's the last resort. You know, that's where you got to be. Preferably you can resolve the problem with that. But yes, that is definitely an alternative that would be employed if we can't deal with the problem in a less offensive way.
In which case, how do you address the problem of entrapment?
Well, we have not had problems with entrapment in the manner in which we do it. We just we don't do anything to draw attention to ourselves out of the ordinary, other than going into the restroom and using the restroom. And that's it. You know, we don't solicit, we don't wink, we don't smile, at people, and we don't encourage any of that type of stuff. We just do what normal people would do going into a bathroom, whoever's going into the bathroom. And you go into the bathroom to use the bathroom. That's it. And if someone wants to do something beside that, that's up to them. And when they make that overt act.
Now, does the Desert AIDS Project just police it? Do they have people?
They've been up there,
that
they've
just
been
kind
handing.
of, are on certain time frames where they go check it out?
They've been present, they've been handing out the pamphlets, they've been talking to the people up there. I can't say that they're policing it from a point of discouraging it or telling them don't do it, but they have been up there in cooperation with us.
Can you describe to me exactly what, I don't know what's going on there at Hardy Park?
There's male homosexual activity occurring in the park, in the restaurant. And it has become a place where male homosexuals wait for and meet and solicit homosexual acts.
I'd like to make a point. I don't think it's necessarily homosexual activity. I think it's sexual activity between males, because all homosexuals don't necessarily act that way.
Well, they're not necessarily homosexuals, but it's still homosexuality.
Okay, right. That's right.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with that. Anything else?
You're being awfully tame for you tonight.
Oh, you're still worn out from that. That's the
Imagine.
Yes.
If you had an officer that was in question of, like entrapment, what would you suggest to the officer, or what actions would you take against the officer if he was advancing towards other people in the restroom or in that situation?
Because we don't work that crime very often, we would train the officers and instruct the officers before they even went in. We would tell them what not to do and what to do. We would make sure they understood that. We do the same thing when we're working the prostitutes. When we have guys who are going out and going to approach the prostitutes, streetwalkers, male officers or other agents, we instruct them exactly what they have to get from the prostitute as far as conversation, and what they can't say associated with the conversation, so there's no entrapment. And we frequently use tape recorders, so that we know exactly what is said and what isn't said for the benefit of us and what's going on, but for the benefit of the court associated with the conviction. And we would do the same thing in policing homosexual activity, so we would know. And if the officer said something, we would challenge him on it, correct him. And if the case is, if it's entrapment through and through, then it doesn't go anyplace. It doesn't get filed. So that's what we.
That you would discourage that.
Oh yeah, that's no good. That's not what we're there for. We're not trying to create crime. We're trying to prevent crime and get rid of it. We're not trying to develop it. Let me tell you about some of the things that have been going on since I got here, so you're thinking about other things, just for general information about the police department. Probably it's true when a new person comes into an organization, they reorganize. That's one of the first things they do. So I came here in October of '89, and in October of '90 we reorganized. We distributed the people, in my opinion, more evenly across the board to enhance communications and to equal the workload. For instance, I've got 2 captains. who work under me, and then lieutenants work under them. Well, the two captains, one captain had 124 people working for him, and the other captain had 5. So I felt that was a little bit unequal distribution. The person that had 124 people had the patrol operation and detectives and everything, and that's very action-packed. And I thought, there's no way he can get into the organization, know what's going on, respond to all that has to be responded to in the personnel administration, and get it all done right. So we redistributed the people and took care of that. I noticed, and it was advised, took a look at, on the north end of town we have a community, a couple neighborhoods called the Highland Gateway neighborhoods. And that neighborhood, those neighborhoods represent the only place in town that has any visibility of drug sales activity on the street. And the people in that community are fearful about what the activity is that's going on. There's people out on the street always in the night, and we're fearful. So, in my opinion, the best way to deal with that is to get real close to the community from a police perspective, learn what the problems are, and deal with all the problems, whether or not they're crime related, but deal with all the problems. The appearance of the neighborhood, the attitude of the neighbors, dealing with the fear factor of crime, as well as the crime frequency. So I selected an officer who was assigned to that neighborhood. It's about 10 square blocks, And I said, read these books on community-oriented policing. You may have read that phrase someplace in this Christopher Commission report, community-oriented policing. Read these books on community-oriented policing, and I want to talk to you. So this officer read the books, and I understand the concept, and this is how I see the mission and the goals. And we went out and had a meeting with the community and said, tell us what your problems are. They threw them at us, and we put them on the blackboard and everything. So I gave the officer the problems and the methods that I wanted used in dealing with the community out there. And that officer's finished a year, almost a year. The officer started around August of last year, and the officer just got relieved by another officer this month. And the reason why I wanted to pull that officer out is because it's a very intense environment. All kinds of negative vibes coming at you all the time from everybody, even the good people in the community and the crooks in the community and City Hall and the police department, all kinds of negative vibes in this particular position. The officer I put into that neighborhood, in that intense environment where drug activity was pretty heavy, a lot of street sales in the Bronx, was a female. And the female was Mexican. And she tells me how she went into the neighborhood with 3 strikes against her. She's a Mexican in the black neighborhood. She's a female in the black neighborhood. She's a cop. She did a superb job. Superb. Really has improved the area out there. And the people are telling me this. I'm not. They're saying how nice the neighborhood looks, much better. You know, she deals with the dilapidated houses, the code violations, the abandoned vehicles, the broken windows, as well as the narcotic sales on the street, narcotic sales in apartments. She identifies the places, and then she does civil processes and or asks for a narcotics unit to go out and work it, or asks for the Coachella Valley Narcotics Task Force to go out and work it, and it's really come around. Probably 2, 3, 4 years more work. Hopefully we can leave and let them handle it. See, the idea of community policing is you go in, and you get the community off the couch, and you get them all to agree they're going to make this place better, and you work with them, and you facilitate all this activity that improves the neighborhood. They feel better about the neighborhood. They get out onto the street, they start using their front lawns, they start walking in the evening with their family or their dog, and they start visiting with their neighbor. And when that environment develops from one where they were behind the bars on the windows of their houses and weren't coming out at all after dark, when that new environment develops, of course, don't come back, because people are using the neighborhood and they're out there. So that's what we're trying to do out there, and that's what that one officer started in the first year. It's the hard year. She got through that. Now I've got another officer out there. This officer happens to be a male, but it's a lot of hard work, and it takes a lot of time, and the volunteers were not standing in line at my door for the project. Anyway, I'll get that. Yes?
Congratulations. That was to be my next question about how many women you have as captains and lieutenants, and how many women officers. And I like hearing the process that you used, working within the community. So how many female officers do you have?
I apologize. I don't have that many people I should know, but about half a dozen. Nothing to write home about.
Uh-huh.
Females in policing still on the starting blocks, still trying to get in. There's a lot of people getting, the doors are open,
Yeah.
but you know, it's not attractive to a lot of ladies. You know, they just they have a lot of other things they'd rather do than be a police officer, so it's not that attractive. Good money, it's you know.
I'm going to suggest that the lesbians in the valley and in Yucca Valley who are struggling with jobs where they make, you know, $4 an hour, $5 an hour, if they felt that, you know, if you were to come out and make a statement, we encourage you, I don't know how that would be done, they're out there. And I believe they would, you know, they would be here. I think there's been a hesitancy to join the police force because of the homophobia that may not be there, but I think most of us feel that it probably is there.
I would be glad to do it, and I would solicit my fellow chiefs in the valley. If you want to have a meeting of the lesbians that you think might be interested in this, we would come to the meeting and explain what it takes to be a police officer, what the process is, the education, what you need to do to prepare yourself even before you apply, these kinds of things. So if they, and we'll bring some flyers so they can see the salary and all this other stuff on it too, but I'd be glad to put that out and see if we can
Some
get
female officers to talk
Sure.
to them, to encourage them.
I don't know. But, you know, and as far as being in the ranks as captains, they got a while to go. In LA Police Department, where they have 8,000 officers, they can rise quicker. You know, when they come into a smaller agency, they don't rise as fast. Nobody rises as fast in that regard. So getting the minorities up the ranks and getting the ladies up the ranks, it's coming. Well, my intent is to develop the bottom line pool to get that accomplished, and then everything else will happen. But in our business, the only two positions that you come in from outside in is the entry-level position, police officer, and my job. In between, this always comes up from within the organization. In most organizations, sometimes we go out for intermediate positions, but it's seldom that we do it. So you have to get in the base pool and show your ability there, and then rise to that. So that's one of the projects we had. We just agreed to hook up with Cathedral City's law enforcement computer system. If you're not aware of it, they have a law enforcement computer system that includes Indio, Coachella, and Cathedral City. And we just signed a contract with them to go into their records management system for policing. We should be up and running in September. And that's going to make us more efficient. Our master name index and a variety of other features of our records unit are going to be more readily available. We'll be able to get the data quicker. Next year, we hope to go to computer-assisted dispatch. Right now, our dispatching is all manual, and have all our dispatching activities recorded in the computer. We'll do that next year off the same system that we're using regionally. By the way, that's not a usual system you'll find police agencies agreeing to hook up to a regional system. We're quite parochial, and we don't want, we want our own stuff. We don't want to share stuff for whatever reason. That's the culture. But in this particular case, we're sharing this, and it's working well. And we'll be going to computer-assisted dispatch. And in about 2 years from now, we're going to be putting computers in cars in Palm Springs. So we're going to get into, hopefully, we'll be ready for the 21st century when it arrives. And some of this stuff has to be done, and we have to get involved. One of the other things I've done, I talked about crime prevention earlier. While Ruth Alvarez, Officer Alvarez, was in the Highland Gateway neighborhood, I had an expert come in and study the neighborhood through and through, associated with the environmental design of the neighborhood and how that person can tell us what do we have to do to make the neighborhood less attractive to crime, less attractive to the criminal. You can do that through architectural design. You can prevent crime or not provide an opportunity for crime. You can do that through landscaping. You can do that through traffic circulation. You can do that for traffic lights. You can do that with a variety of physical things that doesn't make a place attractive to crime, and it doesn't occur. So I asked this person to come in, and he spent a couple of months looking at that, and talking to a variety of city departments, talking to Ruth, talking to the community. Divided a study that gave about someplace around 30 recommendations. And so far I have got about half of them that I've got, and these relate to different departments in the city. So far I got about half of them committed to be done. So in addition to the police being there, in addition to all the community and what they're doing, we're also going to bring in this other feature, this other dimension for crime prevention and try to make that neighborhood less attractive to crime. And that's very, very important. When you're dealing with crime, the idea is to prevent it. Catching crooks is fun. That's what we're in the business for, to get a charge out of catching a crook. But we're catching it after the fact, like I say, and it's really a failure by the time a crime occurs. You want to try to prevent it. I had a list with me, and I looked at the car, but there's about half a dozen things that we implemented since I've been here, and I feel extremely good about being in Palm Springs. I love the community, and I'm going to retire here. You know, when I retire, I'm not going to leave after I retire. I hope you find the Palm Springs police service to your liking, and if you don't, here's the process for letting us know. One of the things I did develop since I've been here was a pamphlet that is made up, and it's available at the counter of the police department, and I hope to make it available at other locations, that provides for you to make a written complaint about the service you got, or to write a commendation about the service you got. So that's one way you can do it. You get this form and write it out and send it in, and we'll make contact with you, and we'll find out what the problem is and talk to you, things of this nature. Another one is that you call for an officer, the officer comes out, the officer leaves, and you're really upset about the way the officer handled himself or herself. You can call in and ask for the watch commander. And talk to the watch commander, and he'll either help you on the phone or send a field sergeant out to talk to you, or ask you to fill out one of these written complaints. If you're not satisfied when you deal with them people, you can call and ask for me. And I'm only there in my office in the daytime, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, but I do a lot of stuff other. But anyhow, I'm there 8 to 5, and you call and ask for me, and I'll talk to you, and then I'll follow up. But I get into community, and you'll see me in the community and variety of functions, attending these kinds of things, because I think it's important for me to hear directly from you as to what kind of service you're getting, so I can get a little check and balance there. I know what the officers are telling me, and I know what the captains are telling me, but I want to know what the community is telling me associated with police service, so that I can test it to make sure it's working. So that's a way you can, if you're not satisfied with police service, you can let us know.
2 weeks ago, they had the Adopt a Cop program at the Marquis Hotel, and we adopted one of your officers. And during the conversation, during the barbecue, I was asking him some of the various things that go on in the police department, and wanted to find out the various officers and the feelings. He imparted that there are some homophobic officers. What would you do if you found an officer who's extremely homophobic, that it is disturbing his ability to protect the community?
We would let him know that we know, and suggest ways that he can deal with that. We have employee assistance programs where people can go and talk to counselors associated with problems they have, and if it's an attitudinal problem they have, fine. We have psychologists that we use, if that's what it's going to take. And we have the character guidance of the supervisor, the sergeant, who might, explain to him just what it is his conduct has to be associated with career survival, and go from there. We deal with it.
Never heard anyone put it so delicate. How you
We deal with it from the easy way first and work our way up, and as things don't work, then you tweak a little bit tighter, and you keep on causing this person to conform or go out the door. So nothing like that would be tolerated. And I'm very, very astute to this. Listen, I've been in communities that I can't say that I've been fighting groups of homosexual or lesbian people, but I've been fighting, fighting's a bad word, challenged by at least the minorities. San Bernardino, that's a knockdown dragouts in the black community. I was at the table with the NAACP for a year, and we were working out agreements on how we're going to perform. I have no problem with that. We had a good two-way exchange. In fact, when I applied for Palm Springs, I put NAACP presidents and board members as my references, and they were contacted, and I got the job. So, I was doing things right. But I don't deal with this stuff in a prejudicial way. It's a straightforward. That is, we don't make judgments in policing. It's not our job to make those kinds of judgments. It's our job to do the service, whether it's dealing with a citizen or whether it's dealing with an officer who's homosexual. And there's going to be hard sells, no doubt about that. No doubt about that. But you keep dealing with it. When I went into the organization, I said, nah, I don't like that picture of that bikini girl on the wall taken off. Not that I didn't like the picture. It was just that it's not in the workplace that you put it, you know. And you have to keep walking around every once in a while and say, take that off. And after a while, you don't have to say that anymore. You're gone. That evidence of sexist material on any side of the spectrum is not permissible. Neither is the jargon, neither is the conduct. So, but you have to set the atmosphere in an organization, and it takes a little while, and it's there. But then you have a little drop out here and a little drop out there. Take care.
Do you have an anti-slur regulation among the men as far as types of things that are being said?
In the organization, we have a conduct statement that you have to be very courteous and respectful to your employees and to the community.
Because the kind of things that went on in LA were on computer tapes and on all kinds of things.
That's outrageous. It's not only outrageous because it occurred.
It's not professional, to say
The
the least.
stupidity is outrageous.
Right.
To put that down on something that's going to be there. I mean, I can't believe that.
But
So,
I feel like those kind of things create attitudes. When it's allowed to go on, it creates an attitude within the
we had frankly, we had a gay typist, homosexual male typist in our detective bureau, and there was a little furor. There was some comments. There was some, oh my gosh, statements. And about 4, 5, 6 weeks, this person was a worker. That guy was knocking that work out and typing it. I mean, the detectives were swarming to him to get the work done and talking to him and all this other stuff. You know, the performance just won over the people. It had nothing to do with the person's sexual persuasion. The person was working, and they loved the fact when he was only temporary when we got a permanent employee, and he's on our list to be permanently employed when we get an opening. But they were moaning and groaning because the person had to leave. So, and I have some of my harder sells in the detective bureau right now, and those harder sells were quick to drop any barrier in the workplace associated with getting the job done because this person was performing, and they realized that.
Good opportunity. Thank you, Chief.
Appreciate the invite. Thank you.
I hear from a couple of us on some training programs that we could possibly help put together.
I have no problem with that. Yeah. Fine. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to take a couple-minute break. I know the youth group is already meeting without you. They just, they're off.